The third stage is the adult, where now 24/7, you look in the mirror now, that's you. And someone calls your name, that's you. It's automatic. You are now out there looking at yourself through everyone's eyes, and you're no longer at home being conscious that you're nothing and no one, you see. Society doesn't talk about that. Society represses that. It dismisses it. If you talk somehow about being nothing, say through a drug experience or just going in nature, and you say, God, I'm just so nothing. It's either dismissed as nonsense, or you're mad, or you should see a doctor, or anyway, how on earth do you integrate that? You see, because you can't make sense of it. So it gets put in a drawer.
This subject is very interesting to me because of all of the comments I get on this channel, the questions, the suggestions, and requests for my opinion or view of certain techniques or approaches, and even certain teachers and books and so forth. I would say the Headless Way may be the #1 request I get or hear about, or that's sort of brought up in comments. And recently at a retreat, a friend of Richard Lang's suggested that I actually interview him on my channel, and we made contact, and he agreed to a conversation. So this is Richard Lang, and I just wanted to say hi and give you a chance to say hi to the audience.
Hi, Angelo. Thank you for inviting me here. A pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you as well. So maybe just give us a little background. I should also mention Richard is an author of at least 3 books, I believe.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And we can link those under this video if you're interested as well. But maybe just give us a little background into how you got into contact with the Headless Way or with Douglas Harding, or how this started for you.
All right. Well, I go back to when I was about 10 or 11, when my search started. And I was at boarding school, and the headmaster gave a sermon. And he quoted from the Venerable Bede, who was a saint up in Northumbria in the north of England in about the 9th century. And the Venerable Bede told a story about a bird flying. Well, there was a big hall with a fire and a lord and ladies, and it was winter. And a bird flew in the window, round the room and out the other window. And apparently the meaning of the story was something to do with the brevity of life. But for me, I thought, where did that bird come from? Because I had this, I was listening to the story. It would just be a window without glass, just the dark night out there. And I just wondered, where did that bird come from? And I after that, I got into Christianity. It awakened my desire. Well, when I look back, it awakened my desire to know my true self. I didn't think in those terms then, but I got into Christianity, and I was interested in the mystical side of it. I read Honest to God, and I was 15 by then. But then I ran out of interest in that. It didn't deliver the goods. So this was the late 60s. I was reading about the Eastern religions that were coming into the West then. I came across Buddhism, Christmas Humphreys from the Buddhist Society. And in 1970, I went from the north, where I was brought up, down to near London to the Buddhist Society summer school to get enlightened, you see. And there were various teachers there. There was a Zen man. I went with my twin brother. We turned up at the meditation session in the morning and turned away. We were so frightened, just kids, And there was a Tibetan Lama there who apparently could read your mind. And I thought, I'm not going near him. Then, so it was very confusing for a 17-year-old. And then one afternoon, someone said, oh, you ought to go along to the meeting with Douglas Harding. I'd never heard of him. So we went along, resisted what he was saying for half an hour, then relaxed, and then saw that we were headless, that I couldn't see my head, you see. Instead, I see your head or I see the world. And Douglas just took us through some what he called experiments. And they're called experiments for testing the hypothesis that you're not what you look like. You're not at center what you appear to be at 6 feet. So through the camera, you can see what I look like at that range, a few feet through the camera. But the question is, what am I at center? And in this workshop or meeting, it was very informal. Douglas, he had, this is how he came to it, because he goes back to being brought up in the Plymouth Brethren, the beginning of the century, 20th century, rejecting that, but being inspired by what Christianity is really about. And then asking really the question, who am I? But not wanting to take on another dogma. So he started looking for himself. And he worked out that what he was depended on the range of the observer, relativity, see. And in this workshop, when I was 17, Douglas got everyone to go into pairs, and one person would stand at one end of this quite long room, and the other person at, say I was at the near end. Then you got a little piece of paper, called it a viewfinder with a hole in it, and you looked through it at what you saw the other person to be. And then you drew a picture and put it on the ground there, you see. Then you walked a couple of yards closer, looked through. Now, instead of a whole body, now it was a head and shoulders, you see. So you drew that, and then you got closer, and it was just a face. And then you got closer, you see, and then it was just an eye, and you went right up, and they disappeared. They, just a blur. And then Douglas would say, well, of course, the scientist could go closer to you. So you've got to imagine there, someone's doing it to you. And from over there, you're a whole person. And then from there, you're half a person. From here, you're a face. And here, a blur. See? So, wow. Then even closer, your cells, then molecules, atoms, particles, almost nothing, you see. Almost nothing. See? And this is verifiable. The great thing Douglas did was it was science. It was just look. Don't believe, look for yourself, you see. So the question is, who am I? Well, who am I to you? Turns out to be a whole range of appearances. And if you went away, I'd be London, and then I'd be the planet and a star and the galaxy, you see. And of course, I feel for my planet, or I feel for my country, I feel for my family, I feel for Richard. So, but the question is, what are you at center? Zero, you see, right here. And the scientists can't tell you. You can get very, very close, but can't make that final leap, you see, into the center. There's a kind of barrier there. So then what you've got to do, I mean, it's so simple, turn around your attention and look for yourself, And Douglas developed a little pointing experiment. You point out at things, you see, scientists point out things, then you point in and look what's at the near end, you see, at center. And of course, I looked, and no head, no face. So one of the experiments that he got us to do was to notice that from your point of view, I've got two eyes, but from my point of view, I don't see my eyes. It's like looking out of a boundless window with no dividing line, and my hands disappear, you see, into this vast open space, you see. And he called it a window. And I was only thinking about it a couple of weeks ago. I thought, when I was 10 and I imagined that bird coming in that window, I wanted to know what was out the window, see? And now I've suddenly woken up to the fact that I'm looking from that window into the world. I am that mystery, you see. And so are we all. Yeah. So Douglas, he always said to people, if you're interested, come and visit. It was a friend's thing. So that was in sort of September of 1970. At Christmas, I went with my brother to where he lived and my mum. My mum wanted to find out what had happened to her kids, you see, who had apparently not joined a cult, but something had happened, you see. And we went and stayed for the weekend. He always had visitors. It was always free house. There'd probably be a dozen people. there. And for me, it just was really helpful for sorting out some doubts that had come up because I had been taken by this. I don't really, it had answered a question I was asking. And from then, or even before going down to his house, I thought, I want my life to be about this. This is just brilliant way of sharing, And I didn't know anything else except a bit of Christianity, but I thought, I so direct. Because, for example, if someone asked me just, what is this headless way, Richard? I said, well, look, I'm looking at you now and I see your face. I don't see mine. See? So it's face to no face. And I'm empty for you. And I have your face. And I'm Angelo now. You see?
Mhm.
And if I empathize with you, you see, I say, well, Angelo can't see Angelo's face. Instead, you've got Richard's. We've traded faces. See, I'm
Mhm.
you and you're me, which is just the most beautiful thing, isn't it?
It's stunning.
So, yeah, it's stunning. It's stunning. And the one of the great delights of doing this work is uh, you you can share that and you see a light go on. You think, and it's so easy to share. I think it is. Yeah. So looking out, seeing it face to no face is the fantastic thing, but being still and the world moves through you and closing your eyes, no boundaries. So Douglas developed these experiments. Well, I was around when he was developing them, and so I used to go to his house every other weekend, and I was at Cambridge, so it wasn't far from where he lived. So I used to go down. I would probably spend more time at his house than studying, because that's what. So I met lots of people. I ran workshops in my room at college. I was just taken by it. Now, uh, there wasn't a lot for me to do. Douglas did everything, of course, great. Um, and so I read everything he'd written. I ran workshops when I could. But after about 8 years, I wondered what other people were doing, you know, other spiritual paths, because this
Did
seems
you
so much.
did you
Yeah.
relate? I'm just curious as you were having these sort of recognitions of what wasn't there, perhaps, but that direct insight. Did you relate that to like the mystical descriptions of, say, the ancient wisdom teachings and the ancient Christian teaching? Was it clear to you that those were actually very much probably the same thing?
Oh, totally. Because
Mhm.
Douglas was a scholar. And when he saw his headlessness, he was in India actually, but he'd gone there before the war to work as an architect with his wife, had a couple of kids there, then got drafted into the army. And he was, by the early 40s, he'd been working on the question, who am I, for 10 years, from a science point of view, these layers and all of that, and doing fantastic work. I've got all his books and notebooks and drawings here. It's amazing work he did. And then at one moment, he just looked, you see, and he saw, oh, legs, body, no head, And it wasn't out of the blue. It was after 10 years work. He then did 10 years more work on writing a book called The Hierarchy of Heaven and Earth, which is a game changer. It's the most fantastic cosmology, really. And then he got back into architecture. But by the time I met him, he'd written a book called Religions of the World. So I devoured that. So that was an understanding of the different religions. A beautiful book for children, for schools. It's so simple that drew out the essential because he'd got the essential, so he knew what the essential was. And I mean, he was a very great communicator. He'd say Hinduism is about oneness. Buddhism is about mindfulness. Islam is about surrender. Judaism is about justice. You see, Christianity is about self-giving love. All one tree with different branches. Or the root is this, you see. And at the end of the book, he presented he came up honest, as it were, and presented the Headless Way as just as kind of scientific kind of, you see. So I used to talk to him a lot. He had a deep, deep understanding of mysticism, particularly Western medieval mysticism. He was a great historian, actually. So in the 70s, he wrote a book called Games for the Kingdom, where he took all the sayings of Jesus, because he deeply loved Jesus from his upbringing in the exclusive Plymouth Brethren, fundamentalist sect, you see. And he took the sayings of Jesus and said, we're not going to believe them, we're going to test them.
Mm,
Right? So
beautiful.
so when Jesus says, if your eye is single, then your whole body is full of light. Well, have a look. Yep, yeah, he's right. Yeah, you got that right. Your eye is single and your body's full of light, you see? And he had a great phrase. He said, before you see who you are, you read the scriptures to see if you've got it right. After you
Mm.
see who you are, you read the scriptures to see if they've got it right.
That is a beautiful quote.
Isn't it? Isn't it? So, and he put me on to the, Meister Eckhart and and Ramana Maharshi. He was a great admirer of Ramana Maharshi, and so yeah, I had a deepening sense, a fantastic teacher there, just at that level. And then after about 8 years, I I was a bit frustrated. I didn't know what to do. I mean, um, I hadn't got a career going. I just wanted to do this work, you see. And then I wondered what other people were doing. And when I first met Douglas at the Buddhist Society Summer School, there was a Buddhist priest there, well, teacher, Duravamsa, who was assistant abbot at a temple in London, come over at the request of the king of Thailand. And he was giving a talk there. And so at the same time I met Douglas, I met Duravamsa. And I kept meeting him over the years, and I was impressed by him. And in one talk in Cambridge in 1978, I sort of challenged him. I said, I was in the audience, and I said, I was a bit naughty. I said, well, why do you go around? What's in it for you? Why do you go around as if, you're being a teacher? I could see for a moment he got defensive. Then he totally relaxed, looked at me. It was face to no face, totally. And he said, it just comes up, see. And then there was a moment of silence. And then someone else asked something, and he just went on. I thought, whoa, that is interesting, you see.
Mm.
And he was running a retreat that weekend. So I went on it. It was in Cambridgeshire. Nearly left. It was so painful, but couldn't leave because there were no buses. Stayed, and of course the whole thing shifted, right? And it just blew my mind. And I thought, right, that's the next thing. I went and joined the community. After a month, I'd already been running workshops. I'd traveled with Douglas a lot to the States in '74. And so I'd been around the block in that sense. And they must have recognized that. And they said, we want you to train. I trained. Then I led 10-day retreats for 2.5 years.
Wow.
I
Wow.
know. Yeah, in my late 20s. And it was just fantastic. For various reasons, I had a deepening experience of running groups from great teachers, group facilitation. But when I look back on it, it was a time to be on my own and sit and be quiet and still with this and listen. And because Vipassana is about just listening in a way, isn't it, or whatever. But
Mm.
I had the great fortune that because I could see other people were looking for something, and I'd found. So it's a very different thing, isn't it, to sit looking or to or to sit enjoying. So
Yeah. Yes.
yes, there you go. And Duravaamsa said a beautiful thing once. He said, a long meditation sit, and 2-3 hours. He said, a long meditation sit is like a deep massage. I thought, whoa, now that is on the right track, isn't it? That is relaxation and enjoyment. See?
Mm.
Douglas thought I'd sort of betrayed him a bit, but anyway, I hadn't, because I still traveled with him and did workshops, and invited him to the center to do something. And
Mm.
then after that, I wondered, what am I doing in my life? When I left there after 4 years, this is 82, I thought, well, because one reason I decided to do all that Buddhism stuff, one aspect was, well, you can't share this headlessness now because there isn't the opportunity to do it. So find out what other people are doing, and it will stand you in good stead because you'll understand that language, you
Mm.
see. So then I thought, when I finished there, I thought, well, what do I do next? I thought, therapy. You need to understand what that is. If you're going to speak with any depth, you need. So, all right, trained as a therapist, and I
Mm.
was a therapist for 35 years. And during that time, I trained in Tai Chi. I loved it, and I taught for 30 odd years Tai Chi and dance, five rhythm dance.
Mm.
And so throughout that, since then, really, I mean, I remained very good friends with Douglas, did a lot with him, and became, very much part of a loose network of friends. And the fantastic thing was that, see, the Headless Way is so easy to share, phase to no phase. I am space for you, you're space for me, looking up single eye, all of that. That everyone around Douglas, we didn't, Douglas was very clear, I haven't got anything that you haven't got, right? I'm just sharing my experience here, and over to you, really. And everyone around, I made friends with many, many people, and we were all sharing this. And it's infectious. It's infectious. So when I look back, I realized that I grew up in a mini society where seeing who you really are was normal.
Mm.
Normal.
Mm.
And uh, you couldn't get away with saying you've got, ridiculous. You know what?
Mm.
You're more headless than I am. How does that work, Richard?
Yeah, right, right.
You know. But
Beautiful.
this, yeah, and this was so natural, so normal, so easy. Yet everyone was sharing their journey, and including Douglas, of course. Um, So I've been blessed in that way. And my Douglas passed away in 2007. We set up a trust. I set up a charitable trust. Our work is to make this as available as possible. I go around sharing it. I say I go around making friends, not
Mhm.
students. And my work is that, of course, to share it. And I know the experiment, and there are many experiments. I don't know them like the back of my hand. I mean, I've done them thousands of times, so it's just part of me. So to guide people through those, for fun, for insight, for all of that, but also very much these days, I call it a seeing society, really, is to uh, promote, encourage, give people confidence to express it, to talk about it. It's like the elephant in the room, or I say it's like the tiger in the room, because
Mm.
it's a beautiful animal, and it's wild, and it's fierce, and that's your true nature. But no one's talking about it. And so the great gift I think Douglas gave was to show how it fits perfectly with science. See,
Mm.
he wrote a book called The Science of the First Person. So the science of the third person is the science of you as an object or objects, and they change with the range. Science of the first person is is looking and seeing what it's like to be you
Mm.
see. So it's a great gift there, marrying science and religion, if you like.
Mm.
But uh, my job is to say, yeah, you've got it. Yeah, now tell me, start to share it,
Mm.
because you will learn and you will grow through communicating. Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I have a few reflections. I didn't want to stop you because you were telling such a beautiful story and it had so many nuances. But a few reflections came that you touched on. One is I love that it really is empirical. This is like, if you boil down empiricism, you have to go directly to observation. Like, what do you actually perceive directly? That's where it has to start. And it may not have to go beyond that if you're really precise and honest with what you're actually seeing. Yeah. And so I love that this whole process is kind of ruthlessly empirical. And that's as scientific as it gets, right? So perfect. Um, I love the lack of hierarchy that was sort of instilled in that. And that's very um very obvious to me with a shift in identity. I kind of talk about it as an awakening or shift in identity. One of the most obvious aspects is it's not special. It's rather natural, but it's also astounding, and it's also mysterious, and it's
Yeah.
also not just me. It can't be mine. It's not that those boundaries are just not, they don't make sense anymore. And so to me, that's a sign of a very healthy sort of community, to have that lack of hierarchy and that openness and honesty, that there's no special person here, conveying information. This is really just like an experiment, which in a very beautiful way can happen relationally, right? And I love the experimental nature. It's like, I'm not going to tell you what the answer is. I don't even have to presuppose an answer myself if I've done it 1,000 times. Let's just investigate right now. And you just enter the mystery again and again and again, and it's so beautiful. I love that. Uh, and oh, I was curious, how did this, maybe a little more, but how did it dovetail with Vipassana? Did you find, say, like body scanning and those sorts of things? Did you find that approach complementary to these kinds of experiments, or what did you find there?
I think that I found that it made a big difference to be aware of my true nature. To just be body scanning seemed to leave to me up to chance whether you noticed your true nature, you know. Uh, and some traditions say just, kind of mull over this koan, or, be aware of your breathing. And then it seems the unwritten bit next is, and just hope like hell that it delivers the good, you see. And I didn't see it working.
Hmm.
I haven't seen it working. But as soon as you are given the key where to look and what to look for, if you like, and just what you're looking out of, do you see your head now? Do you see anything? Do your hands disappear? Now you've got the key. Now all of those things can be seen from your true nature and reveal their gifts,
Hmm.
But I, 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 there's a scene in one of the Harrison Ford kind Raiders of the Lost Ark thing or something, as I remember it. And he's confronted with this sword wielding character in an alley, you see.
Hmm.
And you think, oh my God, how's going to, and he just reaches in his pocket, gets out a gun and shoots the guy.
Hmm.
Right. And my thing is, all these kind of techniques that, just go
Yeah.
directly for it. Go directly for it, and then all will be revealed. So I used Vipassana. I used sitting quietly and still to my own end
Hmm.
to. But I saw people struggling who didn't have access. Hadn't. And it was a bit tricky for me because I was in a Buddhist place, and was I allowed to share headlessness? There's all that kind of
Right.
thing. I was under another umbrella. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. Just curious, because Vipassana is also something people mention frequently and ask about. Should I go to a 10-day Vipassana retreat, and these sorts of things. So I think it's nice to see somebody who has direct experience and in-depth experience with both to just kind of answer that. So I appreciate that perspective. Um, so when you mention true nature, um, this is for the viewers. There are going to be people inevitably who hear something like that, and their mind is going to go, what is my true nature? Do you mean my Buddha nature? Do you mean this? Trying to find the equivalent term, or to try to define it. So just to be clear, when we say true nature, we're not talking about something instead of terms, that something can be described or defined. Rather, it's directly experiential. Would that be a fair statement?
Oh, yeah, that's well put, Angelo. I say to people, this experience is nonverbal. Uh, you, the simplest way of putting it, perhaps, is can you see your head? No. Instead, do you see the world? Yes. Well, what do you see? But I say, but that's words. So I say you can't not have the experience. You are it. You're looking out of it. Now you tell me. And I might call this space or nothingness or clarity or capacity for you or face to know. You see, I'm using lots of different words. The more words, the better. True nature is one of them, as opposed to, I suppose, your false nature, which I don't like. So I would say there's two sides to me. There's my appearance, which at this range is Richard, you see, and my reality, which is this nothingness full of everything. And so I could call this as my true nature or my original nature or my original face. So maybe I could just, as well as putting it in that scientific context of approaching and almost getting home and then looking for yourself, I could just put it in a developmental framework. Are you okay with
Yeah,
that?
that would be great. Yeah.
Okay, so you see, the only way it seems to me that I can know about my face, stroke Richard, stroke ego, my face, is because I can't see it directly, is either to look in the mirror or a photograph, or you could tell me. And that's because you're out there where by the time my appearance gets to you, it's Richard, you see. But
Hmm.
over here, it's not Richard or anything, you see. So it transmits, and you're like a receiver picking up that message. So when I'm a baby, there's four stages: baby, child, adult, seer. So the baby's headless. I'm using headless terms, jargon. Baby's headless, no idea who you are, don't care.
It's
But you
so
can't.
obvious. I see
Yeah.
babies born. I have the opportunity to see cesarean sections and babies born,
Oh,
a
yeah.
couple times a week, and it's my favorite just to see them. It's just obvious. It's so obvious, that they are headless. They're formless, but that seeing is so clear. Total
Uh,
innocence. But
And
anyway, wonderful
when
thing.
you, no, but when you're with a baby, you recognize where it's at.
Mm,
So it's infectious, isn't it? Because
mm,
that awakens in that moment that same openness, right?
mm. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Because I'm in you and you're in me, and where you're at affects me, and because from the
Mm,
outside we're head to head, but from the inside it's head to, I'm in you, you're in me. So there's the baby. That's the first stage where we all started. From day one, our parents and teachers reflect back to us what we look like from 3 feet, a baby. And they start saying, you're a baby. Now, if you have language, you don't, but if you have language, you say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Right? I'm wide open space for the whole world. You're telling me I'm tiny little nonsense, you see.
mm,
But the feedback is 24/7. And they bring you to the mirror. And first of all, you look in the mirror, and that is it's a friend. But you are told, no, that is what we see where you see nothing.
mm,
And trust us, that's what you are. You can't see it, but trust us, we know. And of
mm,
course, you have no option. You want to be fed and all of that, and you want to join in. And the ticket for joining in is accepting what society says you are. Not
mm,
just what you are out there for them, but they're saying what you are for yourself at
mm,
center. And so by the time you're a child, you're half in the box, but not quite. So you're open and carefree and all of that. And then someone calls your name and you put the face on. See? Then you forget about it. So childhood is a lovely stage where you're not in the box yet, but you're becoming aware of what you look like to others. And this process of becoming aware of what you look like to others is a process of empathy. What I mean is that in order to understand what you make of me, because I can't see anything here, I have to go out, turn around, and look back through your eyes. That's empathy, right? And
Mm,
you have to learn to do that with everyone so that you become self-conscious, you see. So it's a good thing. It's a brilliant thing. It's empathy. And you first say, yeah, Richard wants, then it's going to be I want. And really what you're doing is that when I identify with the Richard, is I am putting myself in your shoes and speaking as if I'm the one you say I am.
mm.
Because I can't see that, you see.
No, wow.
Now
Yeah,
that's,
it shows how easily we get entangled with these ideas of what other people think we should be and not even realize that's what we're doing. And it gets enmeshed very quickly.
oh, totally, you see. And if you don't do that, I say, you can't function. You need to. That's socialization. That's becoming aware. That's individuation. That's becoming aware. So the third stage is the adult, where now 24/7, you look in the mirror now. You don't. That's you. And someone
Mm,
calls your name. That's you. It's automatic. You are now out there looking at yourself through everyone's eyes, and you're no longer at home being conscious that you're nothing and no one, you see. Society doesn't talk about that. Society represses that. It dismisses it. If you talk somehow about being nothing, say through a drug experience or just going in nature, and you say, God, I'm just so nothing. It's either dismissed as nonsense, or you're mad, or you should see a doctor, or anyway, how on earth do you integrate that? You
mm,
see, because you can't make sense of it. So it gets put in a drawer. So the third stage of the adult is I am what I look like. Growing up is finding out who you are as a person. You have to look in the mirror. You have to ask people. You don't have a choice. And taking that on board and acting as if you are that with every fiber of your being. See, so I'm Richard. You see, great, good. But don't stop there. There's the next phase, which is now, having got that going, now take a look for yourself. Don't let everyone else tell you who you are, you see. I mean, don't deny it. Enjoy it. That's the game, isn't it? The game of life. That is your ticket to joining in society. But now, be a refuge unto yourself. But take yourself to no outside refuge, the Buddha. So that what does that mean? Look for yourself. So, for myself, I am so different.
mm,
Instead of being face to face and separate from everyone, I have your face, you have mine.
mm,
See, instead of being uh, from the outside, you see, well, when you're a baby, when you're an infant, and your mum or your dad picks you up and spins you around, for fun in their arms, I think we like about it is that it sets the world spinning. The
mm.
world spins, you see. Then you grow up and go outside and look back at yourself and you see, oh no, the world isn't spinning, it's me that's spinning, right? Do you see?
Yes.
And right. And when you wake up, you see, oh no, for them, I'm spinning and the world is still. But for me, I'm still and the world is. So it makes sense, you see. And Douglas Harding, he wrote a book called Head Off Stress. And one of the things he said, well, when you grew up and you took on everyone else's view of you that you're still that you're moving and the world is still, you see, well, the world is actually moving. So where did all that movement go? It came in. You took on board all that commotion and with it all the stress, you see, and the world ground to a halt. You see,
Mm,
when you see who you are, you see that you're still, and the world dances again. And this is the same with stress, for example. One of the experiments is all you do is you look down your arm and you see your arm comes out of nothing, you see, right? Then you make a fist, so your fist is tense. Then you say, now, all right, there's tension and stress there. Does that affect the space?
mm, mm.
No. Stress to no stress, face to no face, stress to no stress, movement to stillness, you see.
Ah,
So,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah, very practical, you see. So, uh, those four stages, the baby, headless, the child, both, The adult, just seeing yourself with a head, separate from others, denying your true nature. The seer, enjoying both, you see.
Mm.
And you see also, when you grow up, becoming self-conscious is, you can frame it so positively. Becoming self-conscious is empathy, is seeing yourself through the eyes of others. So it's a really good thing, you see. So you develop empathy, which puts you in a box, right? Then
Yeah.
when you see who you really are, see, your empathy for others goes deeper, because now you see, I'm aware of you, Angelo, and I'm reading your face now, and you're nodding, you see, and because I've looked in the mirror and I've nodded and I know what that feels like, and now I can look at you and I'm imagining those sensations, and I've got thoughts, you see, and they've told me they're in my head. So you're not, you must have thoughts in your head, you see. So I'm empathizing. The theory of mind, you know, you're
Mhm.
accepting the theory that others have separate minds, and your mind is in a box behind a face, separate, you see. Now, when I see that there's no box, see, then I, first of all, I realize, oh my God, you know, so my thoughts are not in a box here. They're sort of at large in the room, in the world. They're at large. Look for your mind. No mind, just thoughts arising like the trees, you see. So mind to no mind. So then I think, oh, that must be the same for Angelo, you see. So I empathize. You've got thoughts and feelings, but your thoughts and feelings are not in a box. For you, they're arising in the great space, you see. So now I'm empathizing at a deeper level, see. And when uh, I hear your voice, I hear my voice, you see, when you're talking, two voices in one consciousness,
Mm.
only one consciousness, you see. And yet seemingly two. I mean, what a mystery. See?
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful way to describe it, and to really to positively frame these sort of conventional experiences of self, uh, and to be able to embrace that once you see the deep truth that that's not really there.
You'll, Here's a little story which you'll have heard in different ways, I suppose. And it's just a story. You can only talk about these things in stories. But before the beginning, there was nothing. Nothing. Now, you can't imagine that, because if you're imagining it, you're there. And anyway, it's a
Mm.
story. In the beginning, there was nothing. Then suddenly God appeared, or whatever you want to call the one. God appeared and went, oh my God, how did I do that? Where did I come from? That, whoa. I mean, for no reason, no help, no manual. No one else had done it. I mean, whoa, that now, not only whoa, but that is fantastic. I mean, no regrets, right? I don't know how I happen to be now. But, go for it. Here we go, you see. Now, when something happens to you, good or bad, but let's say good, that's you want to share it, don't you?
Mm.
You want to share it, you see. So it's a natural feeling of, oh my God, I've happened, I am happening, I want to share it, but there's no one to share it with, because I'm the one. Well, being, very clever, having invented yourself, you come up with a way of sharing. What you do is you invent others. Now you say, well, how can you invent others? I don't know. I mean, that's me. But, here we go, you see, and you invent others so that you can share with them your joy of being, right?
Mm.
Now, uh, there are two things that are necessary for this sharing to really work, you see. One is that you really profoundly believe they're other. Otherwise, it's just a game, right? It doesn't work. You've got to deeply be convinced that they are the, as you're growing up, you see. When you're a baby, no others, no theory of mind, all this social pressure, and you buy it, you see,
Mm.
and you dismiss the
Yeah.
other, that you're the one. You're the one, now denying you're the one, and that
Right.
you're a little. right? Deeply, deeply,
Yeah.
you see. And that's the deal, that it doesn't work unless you fully go for it, you know.
Mm,
So then the other thing about it is that when you share something that's happened to you, see, say you share the holiday you've been on, and the person you're sharing with has never been to that place, you see. So it kind of works, but it doesn't, you know, because you know they don't know. But then you meet
mhm,
someone who says, "Oh yeah, no, I've been there." Oh right, yeah, and I stayed in this town. Oh my God, you stayed in that town? You mean yeah? And on that, whoa, not that house as well. What? Not in that. Oh my God, the view from the window. You see,
mhm.
now you feel like you're really sharing, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So now you see, with you, I am deeply convinced you're other, you see, deeply, and respect that as wonderful. But now we are sharing
Mhm,
the same nothingness, the same
mhm.
being. And I go, and it's boundless in it. You go, yeah, 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 it is. And it's timeless, isn't it? Yeah. And everything's in you. Yeah. The one now is sharing with another who knows what it's talking about. Bingo.
And it's both sides simultaneously.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. It's like if you had the opportunity to wear a mask to a Halloween party and you'd say, "Oh, I'd love to wear a mask and try a different disguise." And I said, "Well, if you went to this party though, once you put the mask on, you're going to forget that you're wearing the mask. You're going to believe you're the character. Would you still go?" And you would say, "Sure, I'll go." And you put the mask on and forget, and everyone that walks into the party had the same deal, but they're all the same nothingness. They walk around discovering themselves in other
And,
forms and then sometimes
and
realizing as the mask comes off, you know.
And you've got to say that, I mean, that is brilliant. I mean, that's just a brilliant invention in consciousness.
Mm,
Not just the idea of many, but the deep, deep conviction of many. I mean, out of nothing, out of one comes a many. I mean, how does that work? But then that somehow or other, although the deal has been that you forget you're wearing the mask, and everyone forgets they're wearing the mask, at some point there's a glitch in the
mm,
matrix, or at some point someone, someone points like they did for me, or at some point. Now that seems, if it happens, then it's built into the system, isn't it?
yeah, right.
Now that is so brilliant. I mean, that is the reason for getting is the joy of remembering. The
Mm,
reason for leaving home is the joy of coming back.
mm.
Well, yeah.
And it makes it really comes back around to the hero's journey and all the archetypes and archetypal elements of the hero's journey that ultimately coming back home, but with true knowledge, with true idea, one realizing one's true nature, everything looks different and everything looks the same. And what a wonderful trip all the way around, even when you were lost and suffering.
Well, as the Grateful Dead said, what a long, strange trip it's been.
Yes, that's right. Do you
Yes.
mind do you mind walking us through maybe just a 5 to 10 minute, it's a simple primer for anyone watching who wants to do it if you're
Oh,
comfortable with
yeah.
it. Who wants
Oh,
to right
yeah.
now watching YouTube, watching you point, in a basic way if they don't know this process.
Yeah, I'd love to. All right. So to the viewer, um, this is a pointing out. Don't the Tibetans have pointing out instructions? I think they do. But this is a pointing out and then a pointing in instruction, you see. So what it's directing your attention. See, Buddhism, the heart of Buddhism is attention, mindfulness. Brilliant. See. So what you do, viewer, and hopefully you're on your own or you're going to be very embarrassed because I'm going to ask you to do some very childlike things, you see. So what you do is you point at something, see, and you look down your finger and you look at what you're pointing at. There you go. And it's a thing. It's an object. It's got color and shape. Then you could point at your other hand. See? So you're looking for yourself. You don't have to understand how your hand works or all of that. And you see your hand. Now you point back at the place you're looking out of. Now, what do you find where you're pointing? And I say, I don't see a head here. I don't see any colors or shapes. I just see my finger, just pointing into nothing. See? And then I might say, well, just hold your hands like this, you see. So these are always guiding your attention back to the space. So you see your hands, you see a gap between your hands, and I've got a computer between my hands. Now slowly bring them past your head and watch them get bigger and bigger, and then the fingers disappear, see, and the hands disappear. I say into the great void. See? And then you bring them forward, and they come out of nothing. See, magic, magic. And then someone might say to me, well, so what, you see? Well, I say, well, I'm with you. So if the viewer is looking at me, you see, I have your face now given in my no face. See, so when you're looking at me, just notice you don't, I mean, I assume you don't see two faces, yours and mine. You just see mine. And you're space for me and empty for me. I'm putting words on this non-verbal experience, see. So then I might say to people, all right, if you want a little guided meditation, here's one. Yeah, you up for it? Okay,
Yes.
all right. So I start visually, then go into non-visual. And I'm going to draw your attention to three aspects of the visual field. So the pointing, one more thing, it's a metaphor, a gesture, pointing out and pointing in. So the viewer could do the two-way pointing gesture. So that's out and in. It's just a very useful idea. The view out is full of things. The view in is no thing. Movement, stillness, face, no face. But there's no dividing line between the view out and the view in. See, so it's just a provisional thing. All right. So the view out is what you're looking at from the nothing. And I'd like you to notice three things about the view out. First of all, whether it's inside anything. So if you look at any object, I'm looking at a bottle on the table, it's surrounded by other things visually. And anything you look at has got a background. So I call it's got a hard edge. It's not really hard, but a clear boundary. And it's surrounded all the way around by other things. So it's in the room, it's in the world, in the view. Now be aware of the whole field of view. So you just got to sort of look ahead and relax. And it's called soft eyes in martial arts, or wide-eyed, or panoramic. So you see the whole field of view and it fades out. So you'll notice, I think, whatever you're looking at, the object, any object in the view you're looking at is dead center in the middle of the field of view and most in focus. And then as you become aware of the periphery, it fades out more and more until it just disappears. And that I call a soft edge. And I say, so do you find anything around that soft edge? I mean, blue objects or green? I don't. There's just nothing above it, nothing below it, nothing to the left, nothing to the right, you see. So the whole view is not contained. The whole view is just kind of floating in the middle of consciousness or nothing. See? So that's the first thing. It's not contained, uncontained. Second thing to notice is that how big it is. So when you look at, if you take two objects again within the view, you can compare their size. So one is bigger or smaller than the other, more or less. Any two objects is relative, bigger or smaller or roughly the same size. Then you go back to the whole view. And you ask yourself, how big is the whole view? Well, there is not a second one to compare it with. I don't find a second view on the right and say, oh, well, this one's bigger than, no, single. Or as they say, incomparable. You can't compare it because right? Because there's nothing to compare it with. You see. So how big is the whole? Well, I can't say it's bigger or smaller. It's as big at the moment, though I like to say it is now as big as my kitchen. Or at night, it's as big as thousands of stars. It's just big, but it's not bigger anyway. So not inside anything, and you can't say how big it is. And the other one is where is it? See, and then we'll go into the non-verbal. So this for the viewer, it's just encouraging you to be curious and to take a fresh look at what it's like to be you. See, so we start visually. So the third one is you look at two objects and you can estimate a distance between them, and then two other objects, different distance. So actually, I got a ruler out because I think Brian sort of did this one with you. And this is, I mean, it is wild. I love this one. It's so outrageous. So here's, if you can see, I've got a ruler, you see. So I'm going to measure across the view. right? You know, between the bottle and the lamp is so
Mm.
many inches. Then I'm going to measure vertically between the top of the computer and the bottom, right? Now I'm going to measure, well, let's say I measure between your head and the lamp, you see, it's so many inches. Now I'm going to measure between your face and me, all right? So I place the 0 on your face, right? And then I swing it round to measure, and you'll see the ruler gets thin, narrow, and shorter and shorter and shorter until when I get right round, it's a point, and there's nowhere to measure from.
That's
Yeah,
genius. Love it.
isn't it? I
It
mean,
is.
it is just there's no distance or infinite distance. You see,
Mm.
it has
Hmm.
no. Where is it? No address, nowhere to measure from. You see,
Mm.
right? So now we go into closed eyes. So if the viewer closes their eyes, and you'll notice that on present evidence, you just made the room disappear. Now, if you
Mm.
open your eyes, you make the room reappear. Magic. That's the power, one of the many powers of the first person. As
Hmm.
third person, you see, nothing happens to the world from outside, but from inside, it's Kali or something. I make the world disappear. Now I make it reappear. I mean, so now, destroy the room, close your eyes,
Mm.
and you'll be aware of a kind of darkness, I suppose, with specks of light. Now ask yourself, I'm going to take you through the, sounds and sensations and thoughts and feelings.
Mm.
So start with the darkness and ask yourself, so how big is the darkness? Well, there isn't a second to compare it with. See, so how wide is that darkness? Well, society will say it's 8 inches across and it's behind your eyes. All right, get that from outside, but for me, it's not behind anything. I can't say it's as wide as east is from west. See, so can't say how big it is. Nothing isn't a second darkness to compare it with. Second, is it contained? Is it inside anything? No, nothing above it, not in a box, not, it's just floating in consciousness, if you like, just in the middle of nothing. And where is it? How far away is it? Well, from where, you see? Anywhere. You're right. You see, I mean, oops. So then let's move to body sensations. And imagine you're a newborn baby. To put it, this helps you put aside what society's told you, what you've learned. So you're a
Mm.
newborn baby, and you haven't even opened your eyes. So you haven't looked in a mirror. You don't understand language. You've no idea of what you look like, and but you've got these sensations. You see. Now, as an adult, if I say, "Well, be aware of your right hand," well, you've learned to connect the image of your hand with those sensations. So that's really useful because I can say, be aware of your right hand or your left foot or your head, see, and your attention can move around, see. So, but that is kind of learned labeling, which is very useful. But let's say you're just a baby. You've not learned the labels yet. You've not learned language. Those are just sensations. And if you're aware of your whole, let's say, field of sensation, what people sometimes call a cloud of sensation, to get away from the image of a body, I think, sort of amorphous thing. This cloud of sensation, you see, how big is it? Well, there is not a second field or cloud of sensation to compare it with for size. It's the only one in town. See? And what shape is it? See, does it have a shape, a boundary, a clear edge with things beyond it? Is it inside? Are you inside anything? See, I said, no, I'm not. No, the sensations are floating in this boundless nothing, just like the darkness, see, in the same nothing. So I can't say how big I am, and this is very relaxing. Uh,
Mm.
uh, yeah. So then this is moving quite quickly. I would do this slower, in a longer time frame. Go to the sounds, the field of sound, all the sounds going on, and loud ones, soft ones, distant ones, I suppose. Now, is the field of sound inside any container? Well, I say no. I don't perceive a container. It's arising, all the sounds arising in silence. Like the darkness is arising in the space, like the sensations arising in this space. So the sounds, and I say that the sounds are coming out of this silence and going back into it. So that silence is evidently very creative. It's not a dead silence, very fertile. And society has told me that some sounds are outside and some are inside. Very useful, you see. So if I've got ringing in the ears, I can tell the doctor, and I know that no one else can hear it, you see. So I've learned that. But if I just go by what my experience is now, is the ringing in my ears inside and Angela's voice outside? I don't find a dividing line. It's all happening in me in this one silence, you see. And so that's why I say, you know, two voices in one consciousness, or the consciousness speaking with two voices, or the you now listening speaking with Richard's voice.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go, two voices, you see. All right, so then let's go to thoughts and feelings. And I could ask the viewer just to, you know, presuming you got your eyes closed, viewer, and just start counting from one slowly, number. So you get a thought going, an image of imagine the numbers, and even you could say them subvocally to yourself. And imagine it, you know, just be aware of each number has meaning, that 7 has a different meaning from 13 or whatever, you see, or however old you are would have a different meaning. So there are thoughts and feelings associated with the numbers, see, arising. And let's say that you've got commentary going and judgments and stray thoughts. Let me call that the field of mind now. See, all those changing thoughts and feelings, unpredictable. How big is the whole field of mind? Well, there is not a second to compare it with. See, single. So I can't say, big mind, see? Now, where is it? Is it inside anything, that mind? No, it's just arising in the great space, arising out of that fertile no mind, you see. And if I had an anxious thought, would that affect the space? No. See, the no mind is absolutely free, unconditioned capacity for all this incredible creativity of thoughts, feelings, sounds, sensations, darkness, and anything else. And this is who we all really are, you see, and is our blessing, and is freely available in the moment now, because you are it. And yeah, so I'd probably just say to people, just pause, don't do anything, you know, just pause for a moment and recognize, you know, you are seeing and being who you really are. Do I understand how all this works? Do I understand what the space is? Nope. And when I'm doing running groups and stuff, I'll invite people now to, you know, now you describe it. And now you say, I am the space. And then we all say, yes, you are, you see. We affirm it in public. Or even the latest, one of the more recent thing is I get people to say, I am statements. I am space for everything. And the first stage that people would respond, it's call and response. They'd say, yes, you are. So they affirm what has not been affirmed. I'm affirming now to the viewer, you are the one. You are space for the world. See? And then the next little thing is to say, when someone says, I am space for the world, instead of saying, yes, you are, you say, yes, I am. And then it's the one speaking to itself, celebrating its own mysterious being, you see. So, and then after a little pause, I might say, well, take a deep breath, you see, and then recreate the world, open your eyes. And now the world has appeared in the nothing, complete with thoughts and feelings and sensations and this conversation and magic. See?
Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Very powerful.
Ah.
Very formless. Yeah. Yeah. I
Uh,
think that's gonna really point people pretty directly, even through the video. uh, yeah, yeah, very
You
nice.
are the one.
Yes. So how do people find other resources of yours, or are there retreats or workshops or online, or what would you recommend?
Our website is headless.org, and so lots on there. And you see a link to our video channel where we've got a few hundred videos on YouTube. And we've also got a little app, free app, the Headless Way. And we have free Zoom meetings for anyone interested in this. And if people can, contact me through the website, my email address, I'm happy for you to put that out. I will send you the link to the page with all the information on, and because there's an online community and there are meetings every day. And
Hmm,
I go as often as I can because it's hanging out with my friends who are enjoying their true nature and sharing it from their unique points of view. So those are our ways of making contact. Yeah, yeah.
wonderful. Well, man, I appreciate your time and the conversation and the pointing, and I appreciate your service to true nature for all these years. I'll
Well,
have all those
a
links.
delight to meet you,
Yeah,
Angelo, and to share the one with you.
very much so. It was really, really wonderful. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll have all those links underneath the video, and hopefully you'll meet some of the viewers here, maybe on a Zoom or who knows how. So thanks so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Angelo. Thank you.